Hello, I'm Harry Belafonte. I'd like to tell you the story of a musical tradition that's been part of my life since childhood. A tradition that embodies the incredible richness and diversity of our country's musical heritage. This is the story of Latin music. Where does this music come from? And what makes it so uniquely American? Our story begins where human life began, Africa, the cradle of civilization. The sound of a flute, the clatter of sticks, the rattle of seeds in a gourd, the stamping of feet. Are these the ancient sources of music we hear in America today? For the earliest inhabitants of Africa, such as the Pygmies, music has always been an integral part of everyday life, a force as elemental as nature itself. Every ritual, every activity, every stage of a man and woman's life, from birth to death, was accompanied by music, and everyone was a musician. After a successful hunt, for example, all the members of the tribe sing to the spirit of the forest, thanking him for giving them food to eat. While many instruments are used in Africa, the heartbeat of African music has always been the drum. It is through rhythms, communal, traditional rhythms, that each tribe, village, and individual communicates with the mysterious forces of the universe. We can trace the rhythms we hear in Latin music today to the tribes of West Africa, to the Yoruba, Congo, and Dahomean peoples. 500 years ago, in a Yoruba kingdom near the Niger River, there was a drummer, whom we'll name Babatunde. From the time he first heard his father and uncles playing drums, Babatunde knew he too would be a drummer. His grandmother took him to a soothsayer who gave Babatunde a potion to make his drumming and singing perfect. His father showed him how to carve drums out of logs. His uncles taught him the secrets of making his drums talk by changing the pressure of the drum heads. His grandfather taught him the rhythms to call forth the many different gods of the Yoruba universe. Shango, the god of thunder. Oshun, the goddess of the wind. Ogun, the god of iron, and others. His father and his uncles took him along on their journeys to play for the chiefs and other villages. Babatunde's fame spread until he was called by the king of Oyo to become a royal drummer. Babatunde's drums sang the praises of the king in rhythms that would echo through the centuries down to us. In Africa today, drummers still lead royal processions, as in the festival of the King of Kano in northeastern Nigeria. even today, it is traditional for Yoruba musicians to sing a king's praises. In Nigeria, superstar Sunny Ade performs at a house party for the king of Lagos. "500 years ago, as Yoruba culture flourished in West Africa, a very different music was developing far to the north, here in Spain, where the tides of history had taken a momentous turn. In these hills, balladeers sang epic poems that told how the Christians had driven out the Muslims after 800 years of bloody warfare. One source of Latin music's poetic legacy lies in these small villages where troubadours like Miguel Garcia Maldonado, better known as El Candiote, still create rhymed verses on request.
Esta tarde, en esta era, sintiéndome campesino y sin ser poeta fino, decirle al mundo quisiera, con mi trobo y mi solera, con la métrica que invento, nadando en un sentimiento, digo al pie de esta montaña que se acuerde toda España donde está el sufrimiento. Nosotros, los trovadores, somos del pueblo la voz, somos improvisadores con una musa discreta, y si el trobo se respeta, aprenda ya el mundo entero que lo que hace el trovero jamás lo hará el poeta. Ay, debajo de una montaña, debajo de una montaña, el trobo tiene frescura. Métase el mundo en su entraña, que son fuentes de cultura. Las alpujarras de España. Ay, la alpujarra tiene gloria. La alpujarra tiene gloria. Tiene alfombra para hermano. Y aquel que traba esta historia lleva callos en las manos y flores en la memoria. Hay trama fina y cristiana, trama fina y cristiana, explotan en esta cumbre. ¿Cuántas personas humanas se llevaron las costumbres a tierra americana?
500 years ago, this southern region of Spain also produced musicians who played a stringed instrument plucked in the Moorish style. In time, we would know this instrument as the guitar. One such musician might have been Bernal Perez. As a child, living in a village in the south of Spain, he learned to play popular songs and dances. He went to Seville to train at the renowned Academy of Music. There, he mastered his instrument and became a royal musician at the court of Ferdinand and Isabella. Late at night, Perez would slip away from court to play music with nomadic gypsies until daybreak. Over time, this gypsy music became known as flamenco. In Granada, under the walls of the Alhambra, the castle from which the Muslims ruled Spain, gypsies still dance. The traditional flamenco of the gypsies of the South has spawned a dance craze known as sevillanas. Today, throughout Spain, people dance sevillanas in the streets and nightclubs. Throughout southern Spain, singers of cante hondo, or deep song, plumb the musical depths of human experience as they have done for centuries.
pajarito. Dígale que usted a mi madre, yo no me veo en esta casita grande, ay, qué bonito mi propia sangre.
The sorrowful songs of Cantejondo in many ways reflect the tragic and bloody course of Spanish history. In 1492, Spaniards learned that all Jews would be expelled from Spain. Those who remained would be tortured to death by the Inquisition. A Jew by birth, Perez knew he was in grave danger. Being a court musician, he also knew Columbus would soon sail in search of gold, silver, and spices. So Perez offered his services to Columbus. As the ships set out and passed the volcanic island of Tenerife, it erupted, turning the sky and sea an ominous blood red. When storms and giant waves tossed the ships, the terrified crew thought they were being swallowed by sea monsters. The familiar sound of Perez ballads soothed their frightened souls all the way to Cuba. When Columbus got here, there were three main tribes of Indians. They roamed around this island freely, and they lived a fairly harmonious existence. When the Spaniards began to exploit Cuba, they tried to put the Indians to work, and the Indians refused. They couldn't do the kind of work that was demanded of them by the Spaniards, and many of them were killed off in the process. Those that weren't killed off directly by the Spaniards had chosen to commit suicide instead of capitulate to the needs of the Spaniards. With this workforce gone, the land protectors or the landowners here in Cuba began to send back requests to Spain saying, we need workers, we need slaves, send us Africans. Back in Africa, the great-great-grandson of Babatunde, whom we will call Ijiwa, was also a royal drummer. After horsemen of another tribe swept across the kingdom and captured him, Ijiwa was sold to European slavers. Stripped of all of his possessions, including his drums, he was thrown into the hold of a ship. Ripped from the life and the world they knew, thousands of Africans like Ijiwa died on the arduous journey across the ocean. But the slave traders found a way to keep the death toll down. Drummers were dragged onto the decks of the ships and forced to play on barrels and boxes. Day after day, Ijiwa's drumming called to Yemaya, the Yoruba goddess of rivers and seas, for protection. Day after day, the sound of the drum beats helped keep the slaves alive. The Africans who came here, or who were brought here against their will, came here for the sole purposes of developing the sugarcane and the tobacco, and to work the land. On the plantation, the Spaniards forced Ijiwa to take up Catholicism, but they allowed him to make a drum and play it. By equating Yoruba gods with Christian saints, Ijiwa and other Africans gave the impression of practicing the religion of their masters. In fact, they were also practicing their own religion. To do this, they formed secret religious and mutual aid societies called cabildos. In Cuba today, these organizations, which were started by the African slaves, still exist. Here we see the members of Cabildo Iesa. evoking the gods of the Yoruba religion with traditional rhythms and songs. The drummers of these ceremonies choose one of over 200 rhythms belonging to the Yoruba gods. In the course of a ceremony, they play several different rhythms, calling forth the spirits of different gods, each of which possesses the body of a worshiper. I think everybody responds to the drum. I think it is a necessary part of Cuban life. As a matter of fact, it's almost the Cuban tempo. If you didn't have drums, I would dare say that there'd be no music in Cuba, none. And that comes out of that African tradition. Throughout the Caribbean, Africans found various ways to resist slavery, in violent rebellions, and in more subtle cultural expressions. The tumba francesa is one such form, in which descendants of Haitian slaves brought to Cuba satirized their former masters. There are many of us in the United States
Hay muchos como nosotros en los Estados Unidos
who are working for the day when relationships
que estamos trabajando para el día en el que las relaciones
between the United States and
entre los
Cuba
Estados Unidos y Cuba
will once again be very friendly.
otra vez sean amistosas,
Because we do believe
porque nosotros creemos
in one world,
en un solo mundo,
one people,
un solo pueblo,
where there's peace,
la paz,
no hunger,
no hambre
and love everywhere.
y amor entre todos los hombres.
And it is art like this that will make that happen.
Y es el arte como el que ustedes hacen el que ayudará a que esto suceda.
Thank you very much. When the sugar barons built their immense plantations with slave labor near the port cities of Cuba, they forced small farmers and ranchers called guajiros up into the hills. For 300 years, these small farmers cultivated a distinctive music, the music of Spanish guitars and poetry. Cuba's greatest living singer in the old Spanish guajiro style is Luis Gomez.
Bueno, un guajiro es aquella persona que ve la primera luz de su vida en pleno campo, que cultiva sus tierras, que siembra, que recoge sus cosechas, que no tiene otra riqueza que la que le arranca la tierra. Cuba es muy rica por su belleza, por sus paisajes, por su acento musical en la palabra. Habla muy musical La palabra, la conversación del cubano es musicalmente, es una poesía. Es una poesía. De poder hacer un verso libre a lo que desee. Y la más difícil, porque son 10 versos rimados. Y rimados con perfección gramatical. La herencia de nuevos soles dieron en el corazón. La herencia de nuevos soles dieron en el corazón y nuestras décimas son obra de los españoles. En símbolos de faroles nuestros recuerdos se bañan. Y vino aquí a la montaña la décima a andar en Cuba para enterrar una uva en un canuto de caña.
When Luis Gomez was growing up in Las Villas province, boys his age had to work on small farms and in tobacco fields. As a child, Luis learned the songs of old Spain from his grandfather. Cuban guajiros were also cowboys, called vaqueros. Guajiro boys learned how to sing cattle to sleep with old Spanish lullabies and how to herd them with rhythmic cries. They also learned how to test their machismo in rodeos, which are popular today in Cuba. The spirit of macho competition is also expressed in cockfighting, a pagan ritual popular since the days of medieval Spain. Pitting cock against cock is as much a tradition in the Cuban countryside as the controversia, a musical duel fought with poetic phrases and clever insults.
Cuando en el occidente se cae la luz del día. Luis, cuando en el occidente se cae la luz del día, en tu décima y la mía brota la sangre caliente.
Es digno que así se vea que el sol muere en Occidente. Y ese sol que está caliente se pierde con más terneza, porque la naturaleza puso entre los dos un puente.
La tarde es quien tiende un puente sobre el río de la rima. La tarde es quien tiende un puente sobre el río de la rima, y yo quiero andar encima averiguando corriente. abuelo.
Yo solo soy un modelo que te enseñé a modelar. Y soy en este lugar como abuelo y de poeta, como una firme muleta que te enseñé a caminar.
When times were tough in the mountains, heroes came down here to the docks to look for work. On the docks, black and white Cubans worked together and over time created a new music. We know this uniquely Cuban music as rumba.
De ahí nace la rumba. Y dentro de todos los esclavos que vinieron a Cuba, entonces ellos como que tenían su domingo que le daban como día de descanso. Entonces en esos domingos ellos fomentaban su baile, su ritmo. Y entonces aquí, entre los cubanos y los gallegos, hicieron el ritmo. ¿Por qué? Porque vino de África, pero se implementó con la rumba española. Y entonces formaron un conjunto y salió la rumba.
Él empieza el baile, entonces viene con su cojera bailando y según la música le va entrando al cuerpo, él va tratando de y la música va entrando y se va enderezando hasta que por fin baila completo, ya se le tira la cojera. Eso le va a ir parecía como si fuera una medicina, baila la música. Una tradición cubana ya, porque de los antecesores que fueron esclavos, usted se da cuenta que eso viene de generación en generación. Entonces el más chiquito fue copiando lo del mayor, fue heredando. Eso es como cuando uno hereda mucho dinero, entonces le queda el hijo, ¿no? Y esto también es dinero igual, porque es un ritmo que no se conoce nada más que mayormente en Cuba o en África.
Matanzas was the principal port that was used to bring slaves into Cuba and to ship sugar abroad. In Matanzas, the folk group Afro Cuba de Matanzas is preparing a ritual meal for the neighborhood. Here, the blending of Spanish and African cultures is unmistakable. In Cuba, I don't think any community celebration would be complete without moros y cristianos, a national dish.
Ligado con el frijol negro.
Es una comida aparte, una comida criolla.
El blanco con el negro, el cubano con el español, el arroz y el frijol negro que es Cuba.
Rico, rico. Oh, fuerte.
Aquí todo aquí es fuerte. El café, el dulce de la caña.
La caña.
Nosotros, todo aquí es, mira.
One of the best drummers in Matanzas is Esteban Domingo Veja Bacalao, better known as Chacha.
Bueno, yo he nacido en un barrio, Cinso. Se almorzaba rumba y se comía rumba. Entonces tenía que aprender.
Era una rumba de cajón, Juanito.
De cajón.
Que tú sepas que era una rumba de cajón. Con 2 cucharas, un cajón y un golpe en la puerta. Con el camarada.
Exactamente, como se dice ahorita, esa es la rumba.
Se rumbeaba todo el mundo, eran los viejos nada más.
No,
Rumbeábamos jóvenes y viejos.
todo el mundo.
Jóvenes y viejos, con un afecto, un respeto, una consideración. Y entonces aquello era una vida. Una vida.
Para nacer, para vivir y para morir.
Y para morir.
Cuban music has been called a love affair between the African drum and the Spanish guitar. One of the first offspring of this affair was the chongui. Born in the early 20th century, the chongui blends Spanish and African instruments, melodies, and rhythms. The chongui is the grandfather of the mambo, the cha-cha-cha, and other Cuban dances which would sweep into the United States in the decades to come. When I first started doing the music from the Caribbean before audiences in the United States, I think most people were quite taken with the almost instant success that the music from this region had. I think when I first did the Banana Boat and I did Island in the Sun and Jamaica Farewell, not many people thought that this music would be very popular, because certainly it was outside of the realm of the popular music of that day. And one of the most successful songs I had, one that audiences constantly requested, was a song called Man Smart, Woman Smart. And it was with great interest today that I noticed when they were playing, there was a melody. Boo-da-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da, dee-da-da-dee-da. And as a boy in Jamaica, and then later on as an artist singing the same melody, I never knew that they had that melody here in Cuba, because the song goes, let us put man and woman together to find out which one is smarter. Some say men, but I say no, the women got the men beat, they should know. Not me, but the people, they say that the man has always led woman astray. But I say, and please listen when I say, woman is smarter in every way. That's right, the woman is smarter. That's right, the woman is smarter. I'd love to go back home, dig the song out, get together with the musicians, and what we've recorded here today, find out if there's a way to bring another dimension to the songs that as the way I've always done it, using the flavors of what I've heard here today. In fact, when I travel throughout Cuba or other Caribbean islands, I find many sources of melodies and rhythms that have touched us in America. Carnival is a particularly joyous example, and Cuba's hottest carnival is in Santiago. The roots of Carnival are in the praise-singing processions of Africa and the Holy Week parades in Spain. In Cuba, during the centuries of Spanish rule, this festival was called the Day of the Kings, a day when the African slaves were allowed to play their drums in the streets and show off their heritage before the Spanish rulers. Today, Carnival is a celebration when all Cubans put their work aside and take to the streets, in a festival that combines Spanish and African customs with the triumph of their revolution. When neighborhood groups compete to outdance each other, 10 days and nights when the drum is truly king. In the United States, Carnival comes from similar roots. There's Mardi Gras in New Orleans, and in Miami, just 90 miles from Cuba, it is known as Calle Ocho. Transplanted Cubans have stamped Miami with their distinctive culture. Calle Ocho, which began as a small community celebration, is now a gigantic street party. Here, the world's longest conga line dances to music by the Miami Sound Machine.
I was born in Cuba, but I moved to the United States when I was about 16 months old, so I really don't remember anything from back then. I grew up in the United States, in Texas and South Carolina, because I was an Army brat. And at the time, I was the only Hispanic in school. And all I listened to was Top 40 until we finally moved back to Miami in 1968. And then is when I started listening and hearing Latin music here and there. But up to that point, I had never really heard Latin music.
I was maybe 7 years old or 8 years old, and I used to play the accordion. So when I used to live in Cuba, we used to play, like, you know, concerts and that kind of thing. Then Castro came into the government, and I went to Spain, and then Miami.
We did our share of weddings and bar mitzvahs. We did lawn parties. We did everything that the people would call us to do. And little by little, as we started incorporating our original music into the top 40 that we had to play for these things, we started growing in reputation. And as that happened, and we started traveling to Latin America, and then eventually our entire repertoire became our original music, and we were doing concerts. But it was a long growing process. It was not overnight.
One night we was playing in Holland. You know, thousands of people were there. We played like 3 English tunes, and then everybody wanted more and more and more, so we didn't have nothing else. So I asked Gloria, I said, I think we should go with, let's play conga.
And I said, you're crazy. And then he said, well, I said, it's in Spanish. He said, they don't understand English either. They speak Dutch. I go, that's true. So we went ahead and we did conga. We got a bigger reaction than we did with the hit, which was Dr. Beat. So we're standing around, and I say to our drummer, you know, we should write an original conga, because these are all like so old. We should write an original tune based on this rhythm, but at the same time give it that mix that we have with the dance beat that the United States is used to hearing, and do it in English so that everybody can understand, because in these countries they release you in English. So Kiki, our drummer, wrote that song on the way from Amsterdam to London on the plane. And when he played it for us, playing on the tray table and singing, I said, that song's a hit.
Come on, shake your body, baby, do that conga. No, you can't control yourself any longer. Feel the rhythm of the music getting stronger. Don't you fight it till you try to do that conga beat.
And I brought it for a couple of people. They say that will never make it in any market because it's not enough in Spanish and it's not enough Anglo.
They told us exactly this. They said it's too Latin for the Anglos and too American for the Latins. And we said, great, that's just what we wanted.
Come on, shake your body, baby, do that conga.
On Let It Loose album, we decided we were going to delve into a different kind of rhythm, not a conga, not a cha-cha, do something a little different. So we went back to something called bembe, involved in anyway with this religion, but it's such a part of our heritage, musical heritage especially, that we wanted to do something that was technologically in the 80s, but went way back to the really origins of this music.
Baby, do that conga.
Well, so far we've traced Latin music from its origins in Africa and Spain to Cuba. In the next program, we'll further explore popular dances and songs of Cuba. And we'll see how North Americans first discovered this enchanting tropical music. Please join us.